do you remember, and what do you remember about like the earliest times ever going to church in your life? Like, did you ever go as a kid?
Yeah, so my aunt was I think it was Pentecostal or something. It's where they like speak tongues in the middle of service. Like the preacher will be going off and then somebody just start go, and I was young, and my aunt, it was on my mom's side. They were very like, they kept their old life, like they changed and they were good parents, good people, but they kept that really under wraps with their kids, and they were big time church people. So they would try to get me kind of involved, and I'd go if I felt like stayed the night over there. And honestly, like I remember being in there scared as a kid, like what is going on in here? Um, but my family, none like they went to church. My dad's side of the family, my one aunt goes to church, but most of them are like atheists. Like they're just trying to get by. They're not paying attention to any of that. No bigger picture stuff. Just most of them are just really good people. They don't seek, and their world is their world, and that's it. Um, but there was also times like my dad. I remember one time I don't remember, I was probably like 10 or something, and I went to this. No, I had to be older because I was smoking cigarettes, and he sent me to um, it was like a vacation Bible thing on the summer, and it was at Mary Hardin Baylor College, and I was probably 12. And I remember my boss, I had a job, I cleaned pools, and my boss is the one that took me and dropped me off. His name was JW. And I was like, hey man, can you please get me some cigarettes before, like, I got to be here all weekend. And he got them for me. He knew I smoked, and I get there, and like I'm smoking in the toilet, like in flushing it, like I think that I'm being slick. And we're at this Christian college, so the whole dorm smells like cigarettes. And I go out and we're doing stuff and whatever we were doing, and they pulled me in there. And the guy, I remember me arguing with the guy. He was like, I need your cigarettes. And I was like, man, dude, like I'm addicted. I can't not have them. Like we got into it. Like, I mean, I was scared to not have them. But that was like, and I remember going to like the assembly, and all the kids, like they would sing and dance, and they would do like this deal where I don't know what they were doing, but they all turned around and started praying in their seats. So I started doing it. I didn't understand, and I didn't really like, I don't know. I had too much stuff going on in my life to worry about that stuff. I don't know. And my father never, even today, we don't really talk about God too much. I tried to disciple him last time he was here, though. But yeah, not much at all. My grandparents, even the sweetest people on the planet. Now my mother's mother is she reads the Bible, and she would go to the church with us years ago, but my dad's mother doesn't. It's never really been a part of our family religion.
So when you grow up, so like you're 12 when you're kind of smoking in the church room, and you grow up, like it's that weird thing, like it's always talked about, like it's that constant buzz in the background where people like, oh, you want to pray for dinner or something, and then you got to pray, and you have those awkward interactions. There's always Christmas and Easter that you pray, or someone tries to drag you to church. Like, what do you remember, like as you were getting older, like your relationship with like religion and that kind of world when it came to you? Like, how did Curtis respond to like those things as it kind of inevitably comes crashing into your world?
I don't know. I feel like I was thinking about this earlier because I knew we were going to like take the long road back. And it's almost like there was always a pull towards it. Right. Um, and I can't really just explain that, but there was always a pull towards God, towards godly people. Even when I was out there in the streets, I'd just run into them and they'd say some stuff and I'd just brush it off like, whatever, bro, like, well, I'm moving. And so there was always like a pull, and I'm not necessarily to the good. Of course, that's always been there, but it was like bigger than that, like, and I'm not saying like I've been predestined. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that there was always this pull to like go. I was always curious, because I would see kids in there and they'd be into it, wearing their Awana shirts or whatever it was. I don't know why I remember that. Wow. But and my dad would take me to church on Halloween, oddly enough, every year, because this church in Pearland, they would like helicopter dump candy. So they'd bring a helicopter in and they'd dump candy. And so my dad, he took me there every year for like trick or treating. I don't know. And then like there's just always been people in my life. And I mean, it ended up with Nikki, who was, that's all she talked about when we first got together, like Jesus this, Jesus that. And we would argue at the table. I'd be like, dude, you're crazy. Are you hearing what you're saying? That kind of stuff. And I thought I was dead to right, honestly. Like, I wanted it to be real, but I was like, dude, I'm too logical, man. This stuff isn't real.
Yeah.
So
what was, like, when you look back now at, you get into your 20s, it is there. Like you said, there's always this weird pull to it, but also the people portion that makes us push away from it. The kids wearing all the shirts or the WWJD things that were a huge fad for a while, and you're like, you're all in a cult. And so you go through all of that, and then you got Nikki coming in, and she's giving you an earful of the Jesus. And so what was the internal argument? Like, when you look back, you said there's this part of you that wants to know and even wants to believe, but then when it actually comes to point of talking about it, and I was the exact same way, where it's like, y'all idiots, like, this is so stupid, I mean, I had friends literally like, we're gonna save your soul, and I'm like, bro, you just stole beer from our neighbor's garage. Like, what are you talking about? Saving my soul? So like, I could not connect that, but I had that same pull too. So like, what was the conflict between inner Curtis and his call towards faith, and then outer Curtis is all like,
I mean, like, the obvious answer is I just always knew that I was running from something. It was like I was off track. Nothing. It just like I could self-will the shit out of life really well, and it always come to a point to where I'd tear it all down or mess it all up. I'd build everything up and then just destroy it. And like, looking back at all of the destruction and stuff, I feel like that was God kicking my ass off of that path again. Right? He's like, nope, buddy, bang, you're the wrong one, bang. And it went on for 20 years, and I always knew, like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be. And I always had this thing in my head where I'm wasting my time. Like, I'm wasting, and I have this weird time thing anyways. So it's like, I'm wasting my time. And I knew that, but I didn't know anything different. Right. I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to feel good in the moment. I don't know. But it was always like, I mean, that's the beginning of how I found God, right? It was in the AA book, and the term was the great reality deep within, right? And I remember, this is after like really digging into church, after I got married. I might be going a little ahead here, but I played the game. When I asked Nikki's dad to marry me, y'all heard, this, like, he said, you have to do Trace Theus and you need to go to church every weekend. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, man, cool. So of course I didn't go to church every weekend, but I did Trace Theus, and I had an experience at Trace Theus, right? It was a godly experience for sure. But I was going for the feelings, right? I was going for the experience. I was going for all the wrong reasons. And same with church or anything else. I would go. I mean, it's crazy how God kept me so close to him, even when I, like, because I was in it, church and Trace Theus and giving talks and doing all this stuff. And the doubt within was just louder and louder. It just kept getting louder. The doubt of what I'm doing, like the God in general, right? Like, and it was, it's the same thing as like what you just said. Like I was good and comfortable in those groups of people talking, and really not even talking about Jesus, but just being there. So they knew that I'm a Jesus guy, right? Hey man, I'm here, like whatever. But anything outside of there, I was full on rejected, right? No, you bring up Jesus, like you're an idiot, dude. Shut up. You want to talk about something else? Like, I mean, really like that. Like, what are you talking about? You don't say that too loud, right? So, and that's the way I was. And it's part of it is there was a lot of ego. Like, what are people going to think of me? Right. Cause I viewed at the time, I viewed Christians as weak people, right? What are you doing? Like, you're out here, like I'm out here grinding and I'm fighting, scrapping for every little piece. And you're hitting your knees and asking the nether for something. What's going on here? So I viewed it as being weak and, so there was a lot of ego involved, like self-image. I don't want people to think I'm so there was a lot of that, I guess.
When you're so you're like, I'm with the tradespeople and I can like hang with them, like, look, I'm one of you guys. And then you're with everybody else and like, no. But I think for me, I think where I knew I was the hypocrite was when I was by myself. Like when I was by myself and I was in pain, that's when I would talk to God. Like, did you have those moments where you're by yourself, you can't BS anyone, so it's you and just that weird feeling of like, there's something that I'm not connected to.
For sure.
And then you call out for that.
For sure. Multiple times. I mean, it wasn't like, it was definitely when I was alone and nobody, I mean, I did it. I would do it one week and then the next week I'd be arguing with Nikki about, Jesus and stuff, but because I think deep down I wanted it to be, deep down I knew it was true, right? Like, is what I'm coming to find out now. But I think at the time when I couldn't, it was like, I wanted it to be true. And I see those men and I saw how they were moving and like, I wanted to be that. Like, and I didn't believe any of them were telling the truth anyway. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? And I'm not saying like it's this, my walk is, a result of my attitudes and all that stuff. But it's also like, I never had anybody like sit down and really explain to me what this is, right? I would go to church and they would give their thing and they would be like, hey man, we need some new chairs. And I remember standing we were going to Magnolia Cowboy Church. And at the time I just pulled out like $15,000 or 10,000, something. It was double digit thousands. And I was going to put a lift kit on my truck. Right. And I was going to put wheels on it and all this stuff. And I remember I was sitting at this big ass window we had, which played a big part in my life actually. And I was sitting at this window and I remember like I was talking to God and I was like, hey, look, like what I'm doing here is very selfish, right? I'm taking this money. I'm going to go buy a lift kit. And it was right after the church had asked for money for chairs. Right. So I was like, look, I'm going to give you this money. I don't, do whatever. I don't want anything in return. And we shot it off. We shot it off to the church and I didn't get my lift kit. I ended up getting my lift kit, but I didn't get it that time. And it was like, I gave it so people would know that I gave it.
Sure.
Right. And that was my payment. And God knew that, I'm telling God like, no strings, buddy, you can have this. What's mine is yours. And I'm just playing a part. Right. And at the end, and when I walk into church, boy, that chest has popped up a little bit. We were sitting in these new chairs that I just bought, so it was, I had the wrong idea. I remember talking to Nikki's dad once about tithing and I'm like, man, like, I can't seem to do it like with a clear conscience, right? Like I'm always like, you don't want to give this money away. And Don's like, well, stop tithing because you're missing the point, man. Like money, and stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of it. was a lot of how I've always moved, like how can this benefit me? How is this going to benefit me? And God plays a different game than than I can't figure this shit out. But he plays a different game. Like he knows my intentions, right? And he like the good father, man. He lets me make those mistakes and look back. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like
well, like use that though. Like from today, I'm gonna jump ahead, but to look back, like now with this walk of faith, if you look back at that moment, at that window when you're like, all right, God, I'll give it to you. Like where is God in that? I know you think you're manipulating, but where is God using all of that now?
Well, I think God, as soon as I heard it in the church, God was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get that change out of you, Curtis." Yeah, and it just, I don't know. And he started playing. I think it just I started feeling guilty. I was like, because like I talked about earlier, God gave me everything, right? Like that, and that money that we had, that all that money was like we're pulling it out of thin air. It was just somebody was printing it and we were getting it. Right. And it was, and at that point in my life, it was easy for me to like chunk some money and pretend like money. I don't care about money. Here, take this money, because it does a couple things, right? It makes me look like I'm so giving, and so kind, and it makes me look like I'm a baller, right? So I'm going to give this money away, and which was no skin off my back, right? We just call a guy and be like, "Hey, bro, send me another 20, send me another 10," until it was gone, and then and then I had to figure out who I was really, without money, because I use that shit as a shield.
You did, but here's the thing. If you think about all those times where you spent money frivolously, whatever, see if there's any guilt with that. If there's any kind of reflection back on you about that, you might sit there and really analyze something like, I spent, a couple $100 on this new toy, whatever it is. And the thing would be, or I spent $100 on a video game. Like, yeah, there's a moment of like, ugh. But then the truth is you don't really think about that 2 minutes later. But you sitting at that window and having that money conversation with God, he's like, all right, do it. One, he gets his chairs, but two, then that money spent feels different from any other money spent. It feels different. There's something else there, because in your mind, you're like, yeah, I knew I was doing this so other people would see what a good person I am. But the funny thing is that's not what you thought about. You didn't think about how all they saw you. You thought like, oh yeah, he ain't falling for this one. Like there's something different that when we try to manipulate God, he's like, yeah, I'm not playing that game. Like, yeah, it's a totally different feeling. Of all the money you've spent in your life, the fact that moment still resonates with you is where I believe that's a spiritual lesson of like, yeah, you can give this money, but the intention which you give it is most important, which is exactly what Don said to you. Like, tithing doesn't matter if it's not attached to the right faith. And so the fact that money, like you gave it and you're like, look at this. It's like, yeah, that was different from getting a lift kit. Because a lift kit, you're like, I'm cool. But you give that money away and you're like, why do I still feel bad about that? Like, it's different. It's different. Yeah. I can't tell you. I mean, for years, I had those wrestling matches. I mean, it wasn't just that I wouldn't go to church. I pushed against the church. I mean, if you were going to pull out your Bible, I was going to reason you to death. And of course, with my biology background, it's, you guys don't even believe in the dinosaurs. Like, I went every time. And so we go through this period. So for you, when did you feel like, not anyone else, but where did you feel yourself begin to crack? Like the mortar and the steel that we put in front of us so that God can't get at us. When did you feel that start to crack?
I was 20 years old. I was in prison, and it was actually not prison. It was my first trip. It was Safe P, which is a terrible place. But I was in Safe P, and they had these classes, and one of them was called Maximized Manhood. It's by Edwin Lewis Cole. I think that's his name. Yeah. So, and his son is actually doing this stuff in Houston now, like that guy from that book. but the book, it's a lot about it was a Psalm of David. And I have the book. I remembered what it was like a year or two ago, and I read it because I was going to start doing it with my guys, like the guys that I work with, the Maximize Manhood. And it wasn't the book. It was the guy that was in front of the class. You know, he was this big old burly man. And there wasn't very many of us. There's maybe like 10 of us. And we go through the whole book, and there was worksheets. He had a workbook and all this stuff. And at the end, he baptized us, right? He gave us the option to get baptized. And I wasn't going to get baptized, right? I was like, no, man, I'm good. Like we're good on all that. I'm not going to come out here and jump in this horse trough with you. And he's like, cool, man. We'll catch you, whenever. And they called my number, like, to come out, right? To do it. So he kept me on the list anyway. And I came out there, and I remember I was standing in the back. I was kind of mad. I was playing cards, and they kind of disturbed me. But I was standing back there, and I was watching these guys like go in and come up, go in and come up. And then that thing in my head was like, yeah, the majority of the Bibles are in the trash can at the exit in prison, right? Everybody, you rip out that back page, it has all your contact numbers, you chunk that Bible, you ain't want to carry that thing. And I was thinking about that, like the hypocrisy of getting saved in prison and stuff like that. I don't know, man. And then when it came to me, I just like, I think that I didn't want to be different. Everybody else was doing it. And usually I'm not that person. I usually want to be different. But in that case, I was like, I had gone through the class with these guys. And they're like, Billy. They call me Billy in prison. Yeah. And I did, and it wasn't like, I didn't have like a heaven's parting experience there or anything like that. But it was the beginning, because right after that, so the Trace Thea stuff that we do, I actually did it long before Nikki and her father. I did it in prison. It's called Kairos. And I didn't remember that until I was on the weekend. And the whole unit, there's like 1,500 people. Everybody puts in for this thing, right? Because you get people coming in, women coming into prison, and they're working with you, and they're bringing real food. They're bringing cookies, and, it's a, hell yeah, we want to do that. Regardless of all the Muslims were applying too, and the pastor comes in one day, and he was like, hey man, we prayed over this list, and we picked 20 of y'all, and I was one of them. And we go through this spirit, and I don't remember that. I don't remember the experience. I remember like they put these, how they in school you tie the rings together, you make those long ass little paper rings.
Oh yeah.
And they had them going all around the gymnasium, right? And you could see them hanging up, and there was stuff on them, but I didn't know. And they like at one part they start pulling this thing down, and they're just passing it around. This whole line, I mean, it's very long, and every one of them had a name. We're praying for you. We love you. And as each one of those came through, like I just was weeping. Like it was, I just saw these. I'm like, dude, who are these? These people don't even know us. We're in prison. And that was probably the best part of Safe P. It was my experiences with God in there. I mean, Christian Motorcycle Association would come up, and they would do stuff and pray over us and stuff. I wasn't all in, like, but I was having these experiences. Like God was drawing me closer. He was teaching me things through people, right? That I was rejecting 100%. I would accept it in the moment, and then I go back and be like, that ain't me. I'm not. God bless them. But so that was kind of like the beginning. I think like that baptism is like really got the ball rolling. I've also had, and I don't really tell anybody. I told Nick.
You're muted. Hello? Oh, now he's gone.
About
Here you are. Okay, hold on. The story you've only told Nikki. Wait. You're frozen. There you are. There you're not. There you are.
No, Lewis keeps calling me.
Freaking Lewis.
Sorry.
You're good.
Hold on. I just told him to stop calling. So I told you what happened, man. I got in a fight with Grandpa and Daddy, right? And
Lewis.
I don't know. I mean, I hope nothing's going bad. He never called me that. So we're at the funeral home, and we're having a meeting, talking about what you got to talk about at funeral homes. And the grandpa walks in, the black eye, and the dad's right behind him, like cowered down behind his dad. And we're sitting down around this table and we're talking to the lady, they're talking about finances and all that stuff. And I go out in the hallway and he's talking to somebody, and they come over to me and they're like, man, he says he sees angels around you. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Wait,
this is the guy.
One? The grandpa you beat up or the dad you beat up?
The grandpa. Yeah, it was so weird. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. These people are crazy. So I don't know, but I look back on this stuff and there's no doubt, right? There's no doubt that God was with me my entire life. Like the stuff that I've gone through, where I've ended up, like there was something that he's been like carrying me through this whole time. I don't know. It's just always, but there's always been that, right? And like I said, my parents were not religious. I didn't have any of this stuff, right? I didn't have any knowledge of God, but there was always these little things in my life to where they're like, hey, bro, like, and pulling me towards Jesus, not Buddha or Allah or anything else, right? It's strictly towards Jesus. And I had 30 years of just absolute the best Jesus stiff arm, like
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I don't know why I went there, but just to say, like, I truly believe like God's been by my side the whole time. Like looking back,
So when the thing starts to crack when you get baptized in prison, and so you have that distance. And I've watched the journey the last few years. And now you look back and you see these God moments have been there repeatedly. Like that old saying of like, like God wasn't with me, but the truth is he's there. It's just a matter of like us not allowing him in. So when do you remember the first time really like letting a bit of that in? Just the possibility, like allowing it to come in and letting God do what God does, like internally, instead of it like, oh, I'm going to pray for Nikki and Cooper. Not that religion where it's about everybody else, the Curtis style, but the style where you allow, like, maybe you know what I'm saying? Where you drop that wall and let him come across for that very first time.
Honestly, like that would be sitting with Lewis, which is 20 years past that. So that's 20 to 40. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's about almost 19, 20 years later. And, like I told you earlier when we were doing my story, I think that was a big one. The praying in prison. And the reason that I did that in prison, so I know you don't know anything about prison, but where I was at, you give them like, you would have green dot cards, and you get green dot cards from Walmart. It's cash money, right? And your people would call you and they'd put, somebody would have their people call you and put money on your green dot card to buy cigarettes or weed or whatever in there. And what we would do is we'd take that money and we give it to people outside to come and throw the stuff over the fence. And I had just lost like $1,000 on a drop in prison, right? I mean, it was money that I made in prison, but the drop got caught, right? And I remember I was running out of cigarettes, and I had to, I was just in this weird place, right? And I'm looking around in prison, and I'm like, man, dude, this ain't it, right? I'm doing the same shit in here that I was doing out there. And I had this like brief moment. It wasn't brief. It was like probably 30 minutes. And I was laying in my bed and I was just reaching out and I was like, God, look, like I'm tired of this shit, right? Like I'm the turmoil, the damage, the everything. And I started making promises, right, to God. And I'm like, look, I was asking and promising, right? Like most of us do. Please take me out of these circles. I don't want to go back to where I was. Please, put good men in my life. Give me a good wife, right? Give me that life with the kid and give me that and watch what I do for you. Like watch what I do for you. And man, he did all of it, and it started out with like, I rolled out to my mother's house, right? Which is already insane, right? With our relationship and stuff like that. So when I get out, I don't go back, and it didn't happen. It was just automatic, right? It wasn't like I thought about it. It wasn't like, it was like, boom, this is where I'm going. Okay. So boom, I'm out of all of my circles, right? He put me in Conroe, Texas. And of course I flounder around for a couple of years until I meet Nikki. And he was faithful, right? He put those people in my life that tried to work with me. And then I meet Nikki. He gives me this good, godly wife who's a little bit fucked up, but she's okay. And then enter her father, right? And all that comes with him. And I'm not talking about finances, man. I mean, I never, like when I meet at first he was pretty intimidating, but man, I've never seen God in a human like I've seen it in that man, and I say that shit a lot about him, but like he was huge in all of it, right? Because the examples that I had, not of men, but just of Christians, right? Like they weren't him, and when I see how he's moving and how he is in his family and stuff like that, I don't know, man. So of course I was still getting high, and I'll talk about that encounter I talked about earlier because it's a good one, and I remember, we bought our house. We just got married, bought our house, and I invite my whole family. We got like 30 people, 40 people at our house, 3 turkeys, man. And a couple of days, we're like grocery shopping. So I grab a 6-pack of beer. I'm like, it's going to be okay, right? I'm just going to drink a couple beers. We're going to do this. So by the time everybody got there, I was already taking Xanax, and that was it. I was taking Xanax and drinking, and I don't know if you've ever seen somebody on Xanax that's trying to play sober. They can't, right? Because in my mind, I think I'm talking perfect, but everything is slurring. I'm like, ugh. But I think that I'm like communicating, and I'm burning turkeys. I mean, I burned 3 turkeys. I had peanut oil all over my driveway. Thank God my aunt brined a turkey, so people did have some food. But yeah, and so that was right before Thanksgiving, and then I went on this run, until like right before New Year's, and I knew like it was time to, like, I had to stop, right? I'd been off drugs for maybe 2 days. I think I got arrested. I don't know, but I was laying in bed, and it was the middle of the night. I was dead asleep, right? And then I lift up in bed. I mean, like something out of TV. I just remember just boom, and I start crying. And Nikki's like grabbing me. She's like, "Dude, are you okay?" Like she's never seen me cry or nothing. And I just kept telling her, he gave me everything I wanted, but it wasn't what I needed. I needed him. And that was the message that I got. And it was so clear to me in that moment that everything that I prayed for in prison, he was faithful and gave me. And there's a Mike Tyson quote, and he says, I'm going to butcher it, but it says, I believe that God will give you everything you want, just so you know that you can't handle it, or it's not what you need, or something like that, and it was so vivid and so like, I mean, I cried for a long time. I mean, maybe an hour, maybe even longer than that. And the next day, what I do? I got high, because that's what I do. And I played it off like, it's probably just a dream. It probably.
Yeah, but you said something important earlier. So you brought up like your connection with Lewis. And earlier you said, I had no one to show me the way. So what's fascinating is even when we go back to, like, we fast forward to Lewis and then you go back, we see from the baptism, like from the kid who was curious, from the baptism, from those moments of like connection when you're in prison and you're like, okay, here's my deal, which is how we all, I believe, approach God at first. Like, all right, like he's a used car dealer. Like, here's what I'm going to do for you. And somehow we have this corrupted view that he needs something from us. You're like, he's created the universe, but hey, you know what I'm going to do for you? And so then we make those deals and he holds them. He shows up and he does this, and yet we still fall short. But you did say before you bounce back was you have this struggle because you can't do it on your own. Like, yeah, there's Don and there's your family and there's Nikki, but there's still this fight in you. So of all these people, amazing people that God has put in your life, what is it about sitting across from Lewis that changed the game? Like, what took you from like wanting to believe, praying to believe, to finally being able to actually plug in?
Dude, we're just alike. You know, like I like sat across from the table from him, and it was me, right? Like, I mean, I was talking to me. We moved the same. We kind of talked the same. He's a little more ghetto than me, but you know, it was like, I don't know. He made it to where it was like it not. I don't want to say like it was cool, but it was like there was nothing else for him, right? It was like, bro, no. I mean, I don't know. There's like, this was it, right? There was no, he was so sure and so like, and he's taking me through this stuff, and he would send me things. This one time, it was back when we were all at the orchard, and it was right before I left, or right, oh, I didn't leave. But it was right before all that, and I talked to him on a Thursday. And I told you this, and I told Nikki this. I was talking to him on Thursday. I was driving home from work. I was pissed off. I ended up going to his house. Me and him talked for about 2 hours, 3 hours, and I bounced. And I rode through the weekend, and Monday comes, and something happened. Oh, that's when Nikki got that offer. That's the day she got that offer. And I'm like, when she got the offer, I was like this. And Nikki's like, please don't go in that office. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home. So I didn't go home. I went to Lewis's house. And Lewis said, he's like, sit down. I'm going to give you this word. He was like, I was going to give this to you Thursday, but God told me to wait. And when he hit me with that Monday, it was like, I sent it to you. I don't remember what it was. I can't tell you. I got it saved somewhere in my notes, but it was like, holy shit. And he was like, look here. Like, he showed me where he was fixing to send it to me on Thursday. Yeah. Like, and he saved it as like a draft. And I'm like, and he's like, God told me to wait. And like that, like little things like that, I'm like, man, dude, like I want that, you know, I want that. And then, you know, seeing how he was with Gideon, with his children, with the affirmations, and watching them, like, I mean, I wanted that, you know, I wanted to be that father, you know, I didn't know how to or what, you know, but I wanted to lead my son in that direction, because I know the other one doesn't work. I know that without that level of accountability, which is, to me, is what following God, there's a level of accountability there, right? And without that, like, I was just bumping all over, right? I didn't have any, I don't know. And I want Cooper to, but it was just like, we're just alike, right? And sitting in front of him and watching him be so sure of himself, and then watching the community around us. We did house church, and we did all that. And even when we were doing house church, I wasn't bought in. So I did discipleship with, I did discipleship with him for a year, and I'd sit in house church and be like, hey, look, like, I'm good with God. We can talk about God, but y'all start talking about Jesus, I just kind of want to walk out of the room. And this is after doing discipleship for like a year, you know? So we kind of stopped doing house church, and I backed off. And I don't even remember how we got started again. But I called Lewis one day, and I'm like, look, I guess I needed more, right? I needed more than the great reality. Yes. And I called him, and he was like, well, let's run it. He was like, where'd we stop? I was like, no, we're starting over. So we started over, right? And then I started doing these affirmations, right? I started talking these words into my heart, and they became real to me, right? I felt loved. I felt like there was a plan for me. I felt like there was a purpose. I felt like this is where I should have always been, right? I felt like, oh, okay, like this is where I'm supposed to be. And it wasn't like a night, a week. It was fucking a year of doing this, right? And it didn't happen overnight. It was, I knew that I was on the right path, but man, I can't tell you like what happened recently, but as far as how my faith has grown, because I don't know, but like I told y'all, like I'll sit outside and I'll meditate and pray for like an hour and a half. Like I'll just sit out there and like Nikki's gone, nothing's going on or whatever. I'll have some time and I'll get into it. And it's just grown like organically with doing all this stuff. Like God's like, okay, buddy, you're right where you need to be now. Let's start doing this. And you know, I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, it was some man. It was Lewis taking time out of his day, week after week, to sit down in front of me and show me who I was in Christ. Right.
Yeah.
And
right there, Paul. So you needed a vehicle, like in Lewis is the vehicle. You needed to see and experience that through another human being. Like we see that in the New Testament. The challenge I have for you in this now is like you're sitting out there and you're like, and I'm talking to him, and you know, and I'm just listening to him. I want you to answer this only for yourself. This isn't Lewis's answer, my answer, or Nikki's answer. Like to Curtis, like think about the last 28 years that you've had where you said, I felt the pull, but kept the wall up. You know, like there were the moments of cracks and breakthroughs, these glimpses of the Spirit, but then right back to the same routine. We go back to the known. So like for someone who is sitting there, who is feeling exactly the way we felt through our 20s and 30s, usually, what do you know about God now that you could never understand back then? Like, think about the two yous, the you who walled up, but the you who's sitting out there and like just letting God in now. What didn't you know before? If you were going to talk to that guy ripping, you know, throwing the Bible in the prison on the trash on the way out, when you talk to him now, how would you describe God now versus his perception of him back then?
Well, back then it was about works, right? It was about who I was outside of the church. It was about my behaviors, my actions, and I thought that like I would never be good enough, right? I'm never good enough to be in church. Like the first time I went to Trace I'm like, yeah, dude, this is like I told the guy, I'm like, look, bro, like I understand y'all are all good people. I'm just here to marry this girl. You know, like because my father-in-law said he was going to shoot me, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Trace Diaz. And oddly enough, right, me feeling like fish out of water over here at Trace Diaz, the guy that I talked to ended up giving a talk that weekend and said that he was a rolling 60 Crip that had been to prison and all this shit. And I'm like, okay, God, you know, and that was another one of those things, right? The first person I talked to was just like me, right? And I didn't, you know.
But God at that point is still the judge. He's still the one who's like, you're not worthy. So you've got that concept. So when you sit outside and you're in your meditative state, who's God now?
Man, I have this crazy trust in God. Like, man, everything that he's brought us through, I'm a little emotional because today was a big day. You know, there was nothing, I was chosen from the beginning, you know, and so were you, right? So was Nikki, so was Cooper, so was everyone that's listening. If there's anybody listening, you're chosen from the beginning, right? Before you could be good or bad, God was there, right? And you were accepted and loved, and there was a purpose for your life. And I didn't know that. Like I had so much baggage and so much bullshit that, you know, like I said in my story, it's good for you, but not me, right? You don't know me. And then understanding like how God let me, all these learning experiences that I've had. And I don't know, man, I can't really explain it. It's not I know that if I went out and smoked crack right now and burned my life down, that God would be right there with me. Mm-hmm. You know, he might be disappointed, but there was nothing that I could do to earn his love, right? Like, and we go through, and I was discipled in that, right? You can't earn your righteousness, right? It's given to you by Jesus' sacrifice. So, Man, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, I never felt like I was a part of, shocker. You know, I thought I didn't belong in church and all that stuff. And I don't think that I do, right? I don't think that that's not where I belong, right? I don't think that's where Jesus wants me. He wants me on the streets, you know, not literally, but, you know, like out there, like telling people who he is.
Well, there's,
You know, people like
well,
me.
there's you on the streets, and then there's you with God on the streets. Those are two different things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest lesson. And then knowing that, like, you know, I don't know. Knowing that no matter what, like, God's got us. Like, I understand, you know, you got, and I've talked to you and Nikki about this stuff all the time. I'm like, look, there's no need to stress. Like, God's got it. Even though I stress too, it's still like, those are the moments where I'm in prayer, or I'll like stop what I'm doing. I'll be like, God, man, take this from me. I trust you. You know, like, I trust that there's a plan. I trust, you know, and then I try to pull it back a little bit and be like, but I got a better plan. Hold on, let me do it this way. And then, you know, and then kind of like second guessing yourself on the pricing and doing that kind of stuff. And when God's already set the track, you know, he's like, hey, buddy, this is what we're doing. I don't know, man. I think that it's, I wish that, no, I don't wish that it would happen different, but man, like, for Cooper, I want him to know right off the bat, right? I don't want him to have to wait and go through the desert, you know, alone. I want him to know that, like, buddy, you're already chosen. Like, it's you know, I don't, and I think he'll be a lot different than me for sure.
Why?
But
What's the difference, Curtis? If we look at your story and we look at Cooper's story, and we look at the variables that you've put in your story, what's going to be different for Cooper? Why would
oh
that
man, you know, because he has two parents that love God, that love him, that are here, that are going to be here. His mother is like the counselor. She likes to counsel. But I mean, you know, even when I think we're doing bad, and I tell Nikki this all the time, I'm like, look, yeah, man, we messed up. We probably messed up. Maybe we didn't do this right. But look at where we came from.
Yeah.
Right. So he's already way ahead, and he knows, like, you know, I do affirmations with him. I do. And that's the stuff I learned from Lewis, right? I learned from this dude. And back to him, another thing, it wasn't just that we were just alike. He was real through all. He never forced me. He never said, hey, bro, no, you need to get this done. None of that. Like, he let God work on me. And watching him preach it and walk it was huge, right? Because I don't think I've ever seen that, other than maybe like Don, you know, that. But Don, me and Don's relationship is nothing like me and Lewis's relationship, you know. So and that was huge. So, and there's no doubt, man, I got arrested just to be in front of Lewis, right?
Right.
And that's crazy, right? When you think of that. But when you back this thing up, and you see the series of events that happened that led me to where it led me, and Nikki to where it led her, there was no mistake. It was perfectly planned, right? Because there was nothing else, right? No one else could have sat where Lewis sat and got to me. Nobody, right? In that aspect. And it had to be, and God knew me so well that I had to be his sponsor first, right? For my ego. You know what I mean? And it all worked so well, because had it worked any other way, I would have probably been like, oh, you probably think you're better than me. But I knew him intimately, right? I knew him better than anybody knows him. And you know, he wasn't going to bullshit. We were just always real. It was all God, right? I mean, looking back, you can see it. In the moment, you're like, you know, you don't see that shit. But looking back, like, I mean, why was I in Walmart? You know, like,
right.
What are we doing? Yeah.
There's an old saying it's pretty profound. At first, it's pretty surface, but if you watch your life, in the older, of course, as I get, you just see it happen over and over again. That when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. And I feel like that's true. When you're ready to grow, the opportunity is always sitting there, just like God. He's always sitting there waiting. So I got two questions that kind of go back to back. Genuinely, where do you find yourself wrestling with God today? Like, you've grown in this faith, like, and it's still like, faith is one of those things you're like, okay, I always struggle when a Christian's like, oh, I love Jesus. It's this, live, laugh, love. And I'm like, I feel like every time I reach this level with God, he's like, okay, we're, oh, you're moving to Texas. Oh, you're going to start a business. Like, it's like he is never done with the adventure. Abraham was 100 years old when he called him. So like, there's this thing of like, you can have this faith, but God is never content with, there's always more for us to do. So where do you feel him calling you, challenging you, or like when you're sitting out there, you're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, where is that battle between you and your faith with him right now? Like, where are you
Story
trying
in
to
prison.
back to bed with God?
Story in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I know that I'll have to take the lead on that, like, and go into the prisons and do that stuff, and that's a big one. Another one, like Nikki the other day, we were talking, and she was like, "Why don't you pray for it? God gives you everything you pray for anyway, right?" Like, it's kind of true, which is crazy. I don't deserve it, but I get it. But that's God, right? But I saw Charlie Kirk get shot in the neck, right? And this isn't political. I was watching his kids, man, and he was in the hospital. And I went straight to his. I saw him get shot, and then I went to his bill, and I'm looking at his kids, and just thinking like, how crazy. Who cares what his opinion was, right? And then I prayed. I was like, God, because Nikki told me, all my prayers are answered. I was like, God, if you can let these kids still have their father, at whatever capacity they can have him. And I didn't look at it the rest of the day. I kind of stood on faith, right? Like, hey, that's cool. He's going to be all right, And then I wake up the next morning and he's dead, And I was like, and then my prayer, it was actually this morning. So I think it was this morning, right? He got shot yesterday, right? So I like me and Coop did our thing this morning. I dropped him off at school, and then I went talking to God. I'm like, hey, look, I know I shot that up yesterday, and I don't understand the big plans, but I trust you. Like, I mean, so it's kind of like there's a lot of patience. I wrestle with him with that. Like, when's it coming? When's it coming? Like, well, I know it's coming, but when's it? I want it now. Like, I want it. And that kind of stuff. And then like when I'm like really visioning, like when I sit down and I really vision our future, it's the big things. Like when I see myself in front of people doing stuff like that's what I'm wrestling with. Yeah.
Yeah.
The call.
The call. That's the question I'm going to end with. Just to point out, when we were at the TAP conference last week, and I don't know if it is a combination of when we were talking at the booth. I feel like I think it might have been that time like Nikki dipped for a bit, and you and I were just talking about Lifetime, and you were walking me back through them, and you were explaining to me how they were that transition house. And I mean, you were on fire those 2 days anyway, but when you were talking about our ability to work with someone like them who's dealing with the people who are in transition, and I just visited there, and I could see, I'm like, these are Curtis's leaving prison. And they're all sober. They're all sitting around playing dominoes. They're working in the yard. And I'm like, oh, this is Curtis's people. But when you were talking about them and that thing, that was an energy that I rarely get to see in you, where you are almost like you're beyond me in what we can do. You're beyond me in the possible. You're beyond me like in excitement, which that's pretty tough since I'm pretty spazzy. But the idea of like how energized you were that those people we could impact those people. Like what was that? And I think I'll add the question here is there is this place where we pray to God. And I always call this the dangerous prayer, where we pray to God, obviously take care of Charlie Kirk's family, but take care of all these people that are suffering. And let's like calm the tongues of the politicians and the media. And like, can we get some sanity as a nation that this isn't us versus them? And this idea of us seeing each other as neighbors and not enemies, like we can pray and pray and pray. And of course, after every single shooting, it's become a joke to say thoughts and prayers. School shootings, thoughts and prayers. Charlie Kirk, thoughts and prayers. And it's like, it's become this thing that we need God to do this. But I feel for me specifically, like when I pray to God, yeah, there's a lot of times where I'm like, hey, buddy, I need you to help me here. But I know the dangerous prayer is when I'm asking God what he needs from me. And so when you're in, I don't know if you're praying that prayer or you're opening to that prayer, but that's kind of my call. Like, where do you feel God saying, like, it's an invitation? I know God doesn't need me because he's God, but it's an invitation. Like, God invites me into his will so that I can see his miracle. Like today, saw his miracle, and I'm like overwhelmed. Like, that is a lot for me to process. And funny thing, like I said, I've answered calls all day, so I've never had this time to really just sit and process what God's doing. But he's calling me into that space to be more than what I believe I am. And for you, Curtis, when you are quiet and you're giving to God your concerns and your thoughts and your prayers for your family and your friends and all that. But when you stop, what is he saying back to you? Like, where is God calling you at in your life right now?
I don't know, like I said, I mean, it's definitely, I don't know. I don't have like a clear picture. I just know that it's big and it's going to take a lot. I know that. And I know, like, so we had I'll just talk, like, this is how God is showing up over here. So we had a plumber come out, which is just a plumber. He's come to look at a septic system. And I'll go out there, and Nikki had been with him for a little bit, and I get home and I go out there. I was actually on the call with you. And then I get out and I go over there, and this dude just walks up to me and goes, "Hey man, where do you go to church?" And I'm like, "What? Like, why are you asking me?" I didn't ask him that, but I'm thinking, like, why is this dude asking me where I go to church? I was like, "Well, I don't go to church." And he's like, "Well," I was like, "Well, let me tell you why." And I explained to him why I don't go to church and what we do, like the discipleship stuff and all that. And I was like, "What about you, man?" He was like, "I don't know, man. I woke up Sunday and I really had this pull to go to church, but I didn't know what good church to go to or anything like that." And I'm like, "Okay, you want me to disciple you?" And he was like, "Wow, I mean, I don't know what that is." So I got his number and I sent him a bunch of stuff last night. He was like, "This is exactly what I've been looking for. Yes, disciple." So, like, it's just confirmation that I'm on the right path. This is where God wants me. And
Where?
it grows.
Define that. I agree. You're on the right path. Like, there's no way that's a coincidence. Like, again,
Yeah.
of all the plumbers in all the world, like, all of this happens. And that guy, I mean, in what world does a plumber ever say that to another individual? Like, what
Ever.
church do you go to?
Yeah.
Ever. So again, the mathematics on that is impossible. So you're saying, like, okay, God's got me here. Now, this is where I push, because you can look at that all as coincidence, but we know it's not a coincidence. So the question I have is like, when God is inviting us into this, which he is, the thing is like, what is the message that he's sending you? Like, what in that coincidence, what did God want you to see? What is, like, he didn't need to do that, but he did it. Why, Curtis? Why would God send that plumber to you?
Probably, I mean, who actually was a carpenter. He was the plumber's helper. And we happen to be hiring right now. I'm gonna talk to him. But I don't know. I think it's probably because the same reason that Lewis was sent to me.
Yeah.
You know, like, because talking to him, it was really easy to talk to the guy. We probably have a lot of common. Nikki said that he had been to treatment before and stuff like that. But probably because I might be the only one that could get him there, like, to walk him through this stuff. So
he woke up on Sunday with an open heart. He felt the pull. Remember, we talked about early in both of our journey, there's the pull. And then in the next day, he ends up at your house, in whatever it is connects him. He feels like, think about that as a guy to walk up to some other guy and be like, it's such an oddity. You're Trace Diaz and you're not doing that. But the thing is for that guy to have that call, that is God nudging everything for him to, like, find that path for that guy, but also to let you know you're now Lewis. And again, for any of us, and I think Lewis would say this too, none of us are Jesus, but we are invited to participate in the journey. When the disciples go out, one of my favorite stories, the disciples go out and they gain the power of Christ. Like, they heal, they feed, right? They cast out demons and they come back and they're like, whoa, look at what we did. They're all high-fiving. They're having a grand old time. And they're like, and Jesus like, do not rejoice for what you did. Rejoice for what God did through you. Like that idea that we're so invited into that relationship. That miracle of like this guy, you don't know what this guy's been through. You don't know and he doesn't know you. But in a moment, like God steps in. And for me, that's always overwhelming. Because I'm like, why me? Like, I'm not worthy. But that's where God is like, you will only find your worth in that invitation. And to speak for Lewis, like, and he can speak for himself, but I would say like in Lewis, when he is acting in his faith, because he knows he fully has to trust God, because otherwise we know Lewis, he would be fully out of control. We've seen Lewis without God. It's not a good picture. That's where you two are a lot alike. You're both chaos. But with God, he is unstoppable. And the thing is you look at that and that's almost overwhelming. Like Lewis's faith is an inspiration to me. Like I need to live more in my faith, but I get so pulled into the world. And so we see that as a model, but I need that model because the word alone is not enough for me. It's just not. It's like, I believe it. And I think the word is powerful. But when you see it enacted in real time, what happens is it becomes this. They challenge Jesus. They're like, well, we need you to do more miracles. And he's like, I could do miracles and you wouldn't believe it. For those who have eyes will see and those who have ears will hear. And that challenge is like, it's in a relationship. In that all of your journey and mine, but it's that lack of belonging, that lack of connection, which is like, I can't provide that until you're ready to receive it. And Lewis happened to be that for you. Like you needed that connection, but until you were open to it, you couldn't plug into that connection. And I think now that you're like sitting out and meditating and praying, all of a sudden this guy says that, and you're like, if any other point in your life that, in the last 20 years, that guy would have done that, you'd been like, oh yeah, you would have probably came up with some great church. Oh, my dad goes here, and you'd have tried to act like you're some real Christian guy. And the truth is in this one, you're like, yeah, I don't go to church, and here's why. And you invited him into exactly what he needed in the time that he needed it. And I told this to Nikki, that one of my, again, a favorite thing in the Bible is when God tells, after Moses leaves, they cross the river, and God tells Joshua to put down a stone. He said, put down a stone. Because he goes, when you return to this point, you must remember that a miracle was done there. Because they don't just part the Red Sea, they part the river so they can cross it. And so the thing is like this moment with that, where that conversation happened, you should put a stone there. Because like a month from now, 2 months from now, it might be like start to fade. But like that stone, you'll look at it and be like, yeah, God showed up in a plumber, in a carpenter.
Yeah.
Like, so weird. And just like I told Nikki about this when she was driving home after San Antonio Behavioral Health, and I'm like, go home and put down a stone, because we have to remember that today was a miracle. There's no way that this day should have happened for any of us. My life, your life, everything that we've been through, and here we are. But we know it's God, because every time it tilts towards the good. We see somebody get assassinated. I'm not even a conservative, but the thing is you see someone, and like, that is wrong. Like, that is wrong. People celebrating that is wrong. And then people using it for politics is wrong. And people blaming each other is wrong. Like, the whole thing's wrong. And all it does is the devil can use one thing and magnify all the wrong. But when a plumber comes up and through vulnerability says like, yeah, I felt the call to God. Like, who says that? Yeah, I woke up and I felt like God was telling me to go to church and I didn't know where to go. Like, what? And that would feel weird, except if it was heard by Curtis. And it's like, hey, I think I should disciple you. Imagine that 5 years ago. Like, it's crazy. You put down a stone. And I think like that's the faith. My one challenge would be, you're like me a lot in terms of your faith, where even everything that's happening today, everything that's happened, like, I see God moving, and I still will pull myself back from it, because I just don't feel like I'm worthy of his invitation. But I would never say that about you or Nikki or Lewis or anybody else out there. But the thing is I still feel that those small fences go back up in me of like, I don't deserve to be here. But But every time God moves, it's the hardest thing to sit there and say, like, the creator of the universe said, Lewis, I need you. Or, Curtis, I need you. Like, I want you to work with this guy. It doesn't matter where it goes. I got it. But I'm inviting you into that. The creator of the universe is doing that. Like, he doesn't need you or me. But the fact that we're invited into that relationship, it's overwhelming. Anyway, that's where my head's at. So that's your homework. Dangerous prayer. Keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who did I say this to today? Who did I say? Maybe it was Nick. Yeah. I got agitated. I've said this to you multiple times when you didn't call. Like, you had that feeling like Allie was hurt and you didn't call her. And it's the thing with Don. Like, story is not where story is today unless you move, unless you're who you are. But and this is the thing, like Lewis said to you, that you brought up in your story, which is, we can't stand in the back row. When God invites us, we are called out. Like, we are called out in the world, because to truly non-people of faith, even people of faith, I think would see somebody like Lewis or us is crazy. Like, for us to be like, yeah, here's my business plan, I trust God. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
I said to my brother today, and he's all like, oh, maybe it was the Buddha. Like, immediately a smart ass response. But the thing is like, that's okay for him. Like, he goes, I prayed up Thor or some stupid thing like that. I'm like, cool. Don't care. But the idea of allowing ourselves to be invited into that space, I forgot where I was going with that. I'm getting tired. Anyway, that's good. That's good. I can, like, that will cut real well. I'll put that on the discipleship page.
Okay.
I think it's, Kurt, this is what I was thinking when you were talking. I think it is critical to God's plan. I think it's the discipleship rule. And Lewis will have a much smarter answer than me on this. But I think it is so weird that in the story of Jesus Christ, the creator of the universe sends down his son, and he's like, yeah, I need a posse. Like, it makes, like, I always is so weird to me. Like, why? And knowing that one of them is going to betray him. But he walks around for years with this group, and then he's like, you're going to do greater things than me. There's this idea of leadership in the Bible that really speaks to me. Like, remember, I'm a leadership teacher, and my greatest leadership lessons never came from Ray Dalio or the 7 Habits. It came from the Bible, because when I was going to church and began to new in my faith, I'm like, yeah, God really is like, I need you guys to go fish for men. Like this idea that he needs other people to be prepared and to grow to become the best versions of themselves, because that's all the New Testament is 12 random guys walking through the wilderness trying to find this way. And when Christ is like, I'm going to die, they're like, wait, no, we need you. But he's like, I have to die so you can advance. And so this thing of like, that God is telling us through the New Testament that this venture that we're living in right now is a human venture. Praying for God to fix all this is insanity, right? Like, oh, we need God to take away the guns or the bullets or the madness. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, yeah, God could do all that, but this is the earth, and we're invited. That this is a human activity, and the fact that you couldn't connect to God until you met Lewis is evidence of that. That guy, if you do not connect with him, he is not going to find God all by himself. It's just not going to happen. We need people. And so we need good people doing good things, preaching the good word in order for us to connect. Otherwise, we're lost. It's game over. And so that's you. Like, that's you. And God will continue to grow. And then when he grows you, the good things will happen.